us pray. Amen.
All right. Name of the Father. Hail Mary.
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Morning, Father.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Father.
How's life?
Fantastic.
Life is good. Fantastic. Good. So basically, today we are in this section of that we're looking at man, and we were, I think, had we gone to part 2, body and soul, but truly one.
We had started there. We're on
Okay, let's.
Page 183.
Pardon?
363.
367.
Yes. That's where we should be starting.
Okay. Okay, so basically we looked at a human being made in the image of God, okay? And we said that that's our basically dignity, okay? Made in the image of God, which basically means body and soul, so which rather intellect and will, okay? And we said that we have the obligation to basically uphold that dignity, okay? It's like God gave us that gift, but we are obligated to cherish the gift and value it, meaning value ourselves. That's not pride. It's a realization that God is, as we say, God is love. Okay? This is what we call true love of self. It's a recognition, okay? A recognition that I have been loved. Okay? That's what we call true love of self. So we have to really have that. Because without that fundamental understanding, a human being has no clue as to who he or she is, if one hasn't discovered that they have been loved. So I have been loved by the mere fact that I have a soul. God wouldn't have created my soul if God didn't love me. So I have been loved. But by that same token, if I have been loved, so also the other has been loved. Okay? So that's why nobody has a right to trample upon the life of another. Okay? The rights of other people. No one has any right to belittle another human being. That's why, by the mere fact that we have been loved, we have also the obligation to protect and to uphold the rights of other people, especially the weak and the defenseless. That's why you see the church is very adamant about abortion. Because you can't say, oh well, I'm a good Catholic, but somebody is doing all these evil things, but who am I to judge? Okay? Then, okay? I'm just a good, no. There we are failing. Okay? Jesus will say, I was helpless and
You didn't help me.
I was defenseless and you didn't defend me. So as that in order to uphold our dignity, we must also understand that the other also has been loved and we have the obligation to basically protect the rights of others, the dignity of other people. And anybody who tries to trample upon the rights of other people has to be basically, called to responsibility. That's not what we should do. That's why the church has things like excommunication. Today, as Christians, especially about this dignity, we have to really understand our Christian obligations. Usually we hide behind this idea. God said, you shouldn't judge. Who am I to judge? Okay, people, I can't judge a person. I can only judge their actions. Okay, if I go to heaven, if I make it to heaven, what will go to heaven? What will go to heaven if I make it? What will go to heaven?
Your soul.
Body and soul. In the end, okay? Body and soul. No, that's not true. What will go to heaven is my good actions. Right?
No. Our soul.
So do you see what I'm trying to get at? Okay? You can't judge a person, you judge their actions. Okay? So that's a person, that's a good person, okay? They just did bad things.
So you do judge.
What do people who do good things become? They become good people. You can't say, well, he does good, well, he did good acts. We say that's a good person. But when someone does something stupid and dumb, what do we say?
He's a bad person.
No, we say no, they did something bad, but they are good people. If I go to hell, what will go to hell? Not my bad actions. I will go to hell because of my bad actions. Why? Because if I do bad, I become a bad person. If I do good, I become a good person. That's what it is. So we shouldn't be deluded by saying that, well, a person is always good, but it's just their actions. Where do actions come from? From the heart. Jesus says, okay, that it's not what comes from without, it's what comes from within, which reveals the human heart, which means the being of a person. Okay? So we have also to be aware of that. If someone does bad things, you're a bad person. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to hell, necessarily. I can change my life and become good. But if I'm under the impression that I'm a good person, it's simply what I do, then why do I need to convert? Why do I need to change? I'm a good person, it's simply my actions. Usually when people talk about judgment, they say Jesus, especially St. Paul says, let's look at Paul, just for the sake of First Corinthians chapter 5. So to basically emphasize that we have the obligation, okay, to defend the right of others, or if I do something dumb, you have the obligation to call me to responsibility. You don't just say, oh, well, you're a good person, you just did bad. No, when we do bad things, we become bad people, which means that when we go to confession, what are we trying to do?
Get rid of all our sins and all our imperfections.
But if I'm a good person, it's just my actions, what do I need to go to confession for? What am I going to confession for?
Grace.
But I'm a good person.
More grace you have, the better off you are.
So when we receive sacraments, what are we looking for? Sanctification. You can't sanctify what is holy. Okay? Which means that when I commit sins, I become bad. I become dirty. It's not simply my actions. My actions can't be apart from me because they proceed from the heart. So that's why we need sanctification, because when we do sin, we become bad. We become dirty. And therefore we need to be cleansed. Otherwise, if it's just my actions, then I'm fine. You see how delusional that can be, and how people may just stop going to confession because they are good people. It's just bad actions. We can judge their actions. We can't judge them as bad people. No, I can. You know, when it comes to people like Hitler, what do all people say?
He's bad.
Evil.
Evil.
Why? Because we are the same people who say, well, you can't judge a person, you judge only their actions.
It's his actions.
But the
Killing,
But by your actions, I can know who you are.
exterminating others.
So listen to what Paul says here. This is a very important, text for many people who say we can't judge. Okay? 1 Corinthians 5. Who would like to read? Sue, would you please?
It is widely reported that there is immorality among you, an immorality of a kind I found even among pagans, a man living with his father's wife, and you are inflated with pride. Should you not rather have been sorrowful? The one who did this deed should be expelled from your midst.
What is Paul doing there?
Excommunicating
But
somebody.
he says in Romans chapter 2, you can't judge.
He's judging.
Okay, continue.
I, for my part, although absent in body, but present in spirit, have already, as if present, pronounced judgment on the one who has committed this deed, in the same name of our Lord Jesus.
Okay, so what is Paul? Well, God said you shouldn't judge.
Yeah, from judge. I pronounce judgment.
So what is Paul doing?
Judging.
Going against God's will, right?
No.
You see, that delusion you can't judge comes from our lack of knowledge of Scripture. Okay? Paul is
Judging.
judging.
So we
Oh, only God can judge. But what did God tell the apostles?
Who sins himself with
Go and teach them to observe. Okay? So the church can make the judgment that Christ makes. And the church does that all the time. Beginning with the Council of Jerusalem. It's the decision of us and the Holy Spirit. And so on and so forth. So continue.
When you have gathered together, and I am with you in spirit, with the power of the Lord Jesus, you are to deliver this man to Satan for the destruction of his flesh, so that his spirit may be saved on the day of the Lord.
So basically what Paul's saying there is the judgment, which we call the corrective judgment. Remember we talked about that, okay? A condemnatory judgment, a rush to judgment, and a corrective judgment. So a corrective judgment is always intended to save, even when it is harsh. Here we have the case of excommunication, which today is like a relic of the past. A politician, for example, just giving an example, a politician can stand before everybody and say, I don't believe what the church says. This is a Catholic politician. Okay? They publicly oppose church teaching, and then the next moment they go and stand in line to receive Holy Communion. And nobody says a thing because you can't judge.
Catholic Church got
Really? You're going to receive what you oppose, and I can't judge. But you're receiving, you are saying that yes, amen, I truly believe that it is true. But I've just said it's not true. So what am I receiving? Those are genuine cases of excommunication. But there's a process, okay? The one in charge, okay, one in authority, the apostles, the successor of the apostles, they can call that person in private. If he refuses, they can call other people who have influence over them. And if they don't refuse, they take the case to whatever the church, as St. Paul tells us. If they don't, you're out. But they all know that will do more damage than good. What damage? It's already doing far more damage, okay, by basically being complicit, okay, by not taking a stand to show that this is true, this is false. That is the more damage we are doing, we are causing. There are no consequences to disobedience in whatever form it comes. Or but pointing it out is going to do more damage. What more damage do you want?
Disaster.
How can we judge when in fact we bring a bunch of baggage ourselves? So I know I wouldn't feel comfortable judging someone else knowing in my heart that I've done something that was not particularly nice. So to judge someone else is sort of like being hypocrite.
So Paul was a murderer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a-
He said it himself. So what is he doing here? He shouldn't be saying these things. He persecuted Christians. So why is he saying these things? And we believe it as scripture.
Because that was.
Because we believe in the power of God's grace to change us, to transform us. Okay? It's not that someone, when you point out something that, oh, for me, I'm holy, you see, you are a sinner over there. Okay? No, we are in this together. We are helping one another.
Okay.
Okay? We are helping one another. These scriptures are so interconnected. Okay? Yes. Let's just stop here for a moment. Okay? And,
When they talk about judgment, you need to ask them, well, what do you mean about judgment? Period.
yes.
You know, what's your definition of judgment, and this is my definition of judgment.
Yes.
The church's definition of judgment, you know.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
then you're arguing in a circle.
Because you're not arguing on the same terms. But going back to her point, okay? Let's go to, because you are a Christian, you are the light of Christ, you are sent. You have responsibilities, okay? So that's why a teacher, whatever, all of us are sent out as teachers. So a teacher must always listen first. So what I preach to others applies to me as well. So through teaching, I am being transformed as well. But I have the obligation to do it. Okay? So let's look at Ezekiel chapter 3 to answer your question in Ezekiel chapter 3.
Verse 20.
Chapter
Okay. Chapter 3.
Next to Baruch,
Verse 20.
Let's begin with verse 17.
17.
17.
Okay? So you read, listen attentively to this, okay? Remember, by your baptism, you are a priest, a prophet, and a king. So we have the obligation by our baptismal covenant to teach, because we share in the prophetic mission of Jesus Christ. So hear these words as if they are addressed to each one of us, the baptized, okay?
Thus the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, I have appointed you a watchman for our house of Israel. When you hear a word from my mouth, you shall warn them for me. If I say to the wicked man, you shall surely die, and you do not warn him or speak out to dissuade him from his wicked conduct, so that he may live, that wicked man shall die for his sin, but I shall hold you responsible for his death.
Oh, I couldn't judge. Leave me alone. You see? Okay, continue.
If, on the other hand, you have warned the wicked man, yet he has not turned away from his evil nor his wicked conduct, then he shall die for his sin, but you shall save your life. If a virtuous man turns away from virtue and does wrong, when I place a stumbling block before him, he shall die. He shall die for his sin, and his virtuous deeds shall not be remembered. But I will hold you responsible for his death if you do not warn him. When, on the other hand, you have warned a virtuous man not to sin, and he has in fact not sinned, he shall surely live because of the warning, and you shall save your own life.
Okay. Don't judge. God said you shouldn't judge. Yes. You had a question?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think somewhere in the gospel it mentioned Jesus Christ saying that before we try to remove a beam out of the other person eye, we should get the impediment
plank.
out of our eye.
Yeah.
And I think that when we talk about being instructed by God to do something is one thing, when we are doing it as a part of our own action is another thing. And I think that we need to make sure that we are doing what we need to do. If God is telling us to do something, we should do it, without a doubt. But I think when Jesus Christ was telling us about correcting our brother, we should make sure that we are on solid ground first.
Yes, we live first today.
Yeah.
Gospel. That's why it's a challenge, because, or at least showing that we are trying. So when I call the other person, so they see that, well, he's trying, so maybe I should try as well. Okay? But if I'm just sitting here, I'm just saying, hey, you do this. Okay? But you see that my life is diametrically opposed to what I'm saying, then it's not very effective. Okay? But again, as you know, Scripture tells us that I will not tell God that she was telling me to do this, but she wasn't doing it, therefore I didn't do it. That will not be a defense, because I knew God's will. Okay? Although the vessel wasn't clean, the message got to me, and I had the responsibility. So the other one didn't do it is not a defense. Okay? Okay, so let's complete here the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. Okay? Okay. So we continue with verse 6. 1 Corinthians 5. We continue with verse 6.
Verse 6. Your boasting is not appropriate. Do you not know that a little yeast leavens all the dough? Clear out the old yeast so that you may become a fresh batch of dough, inasmuch as you are unleavened. For our Paschal Lamb, Christ, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast, not with old yeast, the yeast of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
Okay, St. Paul basically he has the moral authority to say this because of his conversion. Yes. Okay.
I wrote you in my letter not to associate with immoral people, not at all referring to the immortal of this world, or the greedy and robbers or idolaters, for you would then have to leave the world. But I now write to you not to associate with anyone named a brother, if he is immoral, greedy, an idolater, a slanderer, a drunkard, or a robber, not even to eat with such a person. For why should I be judging outsiders? It is not your business to judge those within. God will judge those outside. Purge the evil person from your midst.
So basically, look at what St. Paul says. Is it not your business to judge those within? Meaning, it is our business to judge among ourselves that is good, that is evil. Okay? Because what he's saying is exactly what you said. How can we judge outsiders if the same disease we are judging among them is among us? That's the essence of Romans chapter 2. Okay? The Jewish people, the people of God who had the law, were judging Gentiles for being evil, but the Jewish people were doing the same evils, this in spite of the fact that they had more than the Gentiles, namely the law of God. So St. Paul says, who are you to judge your neighbor? That's Romans chapter 2. So that's where people get that, oh, So we say, why to judge your neighbor? But they don't really look at the context. The context is what Paul is saying here. Is it not your business to judge those within? So that when you are right, then you are able to judge those outside. But how can you judge those who are outside if you are doing the same things they do? That's always the context. Okay? So he says, purge the evil person from your midst, until he comes to the recognition that he needs to repent. Okay? And then, because we said the purpose of excommunication is redemption, to assist a stubborn person come to their senses. Okay? So, when St. Paul writes to the Corinthians again, 2 Corinthians, let's go there. Okay. What is it? 2 Corinthians. Okay, chapter 2. Okay. Chapter 2. Let's begin with the first verse. So he is writing to them again. Okay? Okay? So you read 2 Corinthians beginning chapter 2, verse 1.
2 Corinthians.
So compare this with what he said in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. Then this is like a follow-up, okay?
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2, yes.
Verse 1. For I decided not to come to you again in painful circumstances. For if I inflict pain upon you, then who is there to cheer me, except the one pained by me? And I wrote as I did, so that when I came, I might not be pained by those in whom I should have rejoiced, confident about all of you, that my joy is that of all of you. For out of much affliction and anguish of heart, I wrote to you with many tears, not that you might be pained, but that you might know the abundant love I have for you.
Now this is the text. Okay?
If anyone has caused pain, he has caused it not to me, but in some measure, and not to exaggerate, to all of you. This punishment by the majority is enough for such a person, so that on the contrary, you should forgive and encourage him instead, or else the person may be overwhelmed by excessive pain. Therefore, I urge you to reaffirm your love for him. For this is why I wrote to you your proven character, whether you were obedient in everything. Whomever you forgive anything, so do I. For indeed, what I have forgiven, if I have not forgiven anything, has been for you in the presence of Christ, so that we might not be taken advantage of by Satan, for we are not unaware of his purposes.
Okay, so you see, okay? The purpose of excommunication is, okay, so if a person repents, please, don't keep on, okay? It has, yes?
So Father, I want to make sure I understand. The previous chapter talked about not associating with.
Yes.
Disassociating with an individual who has not repented. So we judge, we call them out, we tell them what the scripture says what they should be doing. If they fail to listen, we disassociate with them, we quit loving them.
This is what Paul is saying, okay? It's not like you quit loving a person, okay? But what he's saying is that we should, in chapter 5 of 1 Corinthians, is that, you remember it says eat, okay? Because, a meal is a sign of friendship and reconciliation and unity. But this person is not actually united to us in Christ Jesus. And so we can't afford to pretend. That's what he's telling us there. We can't afford to pretend, okay, that everything is fine, when in actual fact it's not fine. That is the sin the prophets continue to hammer all through the Old Testament. Okay? You can't say shalom, shalom when there is no shalom. You have to address the cause of chaos in order for there to be shalom. But you can't just say, oh no, there's peace. When in actual fact, there is no peace. That's what Paul is saying here.
So when you know the person is sinning, and you call them out, and they fail to listen, you still love them, but you continue to call them out
Yes.
every time?
Well, sometimes, there's a difference between calling someone out and nagging, okay? There's a point whereby a person can know your position, okay? Once you do that, now it's up to them, okay? But you can't, let me give you an example, okay? These are your friends, okay? And you tell them that, let's say, gay marriage is wrong. And they're saying, you hear they are going to get married. And you call them out that it is wrong, okay? You can't do that. Then they send you an invitation. And you say, well, since they know my position, I can go and attend, but they know my position. You see that? That's what St. Paul is saying, okay? So under no circumstances can you eat, because by going, you're really contradicting your position. In other words, you're pretending, you're giving the impression that it is fine. Okay, that could be a good example.
Well, this could be your kid.
Pardon?
I mean, I'm opposed to gay marriage, but if it's your child and you love this child and you want to support them in anything and everything they do, it's a slap in their face if in fact you don't go.
Yes, and that's what you should do. Remember, God's creation, when God created everything, it was very good, okay? And He loved everything, okay? The devil disobeyed. What did God do?
He throws them out.
It's a tough decision, but because that's what we call, sometimes we call it like false compassion. Because my child, okay, I'm your child, okay, you see me do something which might land me in hell, okay? And you pretend as if it is fine under the guise of loving me. You are not loving me. That's not love. Because you have basically abandoned me to a very dangerous state of affairs. Let's give a simple example. I am your child, you love me so much, and I tell you, there's a cliff which is like 400 feet, okay? And I say, Mom, I want to jump off the cliff. There are stones, rocks down there. That's what I want. I say, my child, I love you. This is the best position to jump from.
No.
You can't do that.
But that's the support.
You can't do that. You would do whatever is in your power to prevent me from doing it.
But then they will hate.
Okay? So I can't tell you, Mom, come with me as you see me jump off the cliff. If you don't come, I know you don't love me. You see, they put you on a guilty kind of trip, okay? I know you don't love me. So what would you do as a parent? I love you, but I will not accompany you to commit suicide. And those are tough, decisions in life. It's not easy if someone comes to a situation like that. It's not easy at all. But you do what you need to do because it's the right thing to do for the sake of the other. That maybe they may come to the realization that since Mom loves me so much, but she is able to make this stand, that can help someone to come to their senses and realize this has to be grave for Mom not to get involved. That's how we can help other people. But if we seemingly try to, okay, what do? I go. Then you don't really show someone that you are jumping off the cliff. It's severe. There are rocks down there. There's no survival. They are tough decisions. But for the sake, and that's what Jesus says in that text. I can't remember the exact chapter. Whoever loves mother, father, son, daughter, more than me is not worthy of me. That's what he means, right, by that. That if it is truth, no matter who does it. If it is falsehood, it is falsehood, no matter who does it. Whether my child or friend or whoever, it doesn't become good because it is my child now involved. If it is bad, it is bad. If it is good, it is good. As often again you see, sometimes people we don't like, okay? Even if they do something good, we try to find something bad about it. Good is good regardless of who does it. Bad is bad regardless of who does it. So that's the principle. Okay, so we brought that up in relation to basically upholding the dignity of another person, even if the person is the one trying to debase their dignity. You want to do that? Okay, go ahead. We call them out, not in like a nagging way, but our position that that's wrong. Or you are holier than thou. No, we are in this together. Okay. All right. So now we come to 367. Okay, continuing with the spiritual principle. Okay, the spirit. So sometimes the soul is distinguished from the spirit. St. Paul, for instance, prays that God may sanctify his people wholly with the spirit and soul and body, kept sound and blameless at the Lord's coming. So the church teaches that this distinction does not introduce a duality into the soul. Spirit signifies that from creation, man is ordered to a supernatural end, and that his soul can gratuitously be raised beyond all it deserves to communion with God. So there is no distinction like between body and soul, rather spirit and soul. Okay? So when we talk about a soul, we mean that spiritual principle, okay? Which basically, as the church teaches, that it helps us to understand that it's in supernatural end communion with God, who is spirit. Okay, that's the sense in which sometimes the soul is called the spirit soul. Okay, let's get reference to the same thing. Okay, spirit, a supernatural end. So the soul is meant for God because it's created by Him. So that communion with God is what we refer to as the end of the soul, meaning spiritual communion. Okay, so the spiritual tradition of the church also emphasizes the heart. Yeah, this is significant, okay, from the biblical point of view. So in the biblical sense of the depth of one's being, where the person decides for or against God. So it's easy to understand from the, we're making a Greek distinction. For the Greeks, it is the mind. Okay, so everything proceeds from the mind. The center of human consciousness for the Greeks is the mind. For the Hebrews, the biblical tradition, the center of human consciousness is the heart. Everything we do proceeds from the heart. So that's the sense in which we use the word heart. That's why, again, Jesus himself refers to the heart. Okay? That's why we have the sacred heart of Jesus. One can say, why don't we have the sacred brain of Jesus? Or the sacred lungs? Because the heart is the center of human consciousness. It is where the principle from which a person proceeds. So everything that we do proceeds from the center of our consciousness, which is referred to as the heart. Okay? So the heart in this sense doesn't just mean a body part. It means the source from which a human being proceeds. Okay? The depths of one's being. Okay, now male and female he created them. Okay, number 3, equality and a difference willed by God. As we said before, equal doesn't mean uniform. Okay, because male and female are equal, so I ask you, God, why can't I get pregnant? Okay. So, man and woman have been created, which is to say, willed by God. That's what we mean by that word created, okay? Willed by God. On the one hand, in perfect equality as human persons. Okay? This has to be really emphasized so mightily. Human persons, they are equal. How?
Because they were created.
How is male and female equal?
Because they're what God's creation.
So both
We are
created.
both created in the
They
image of
have a human soul and a human body.
Yeah.
They are made in the image of God. Therefore, they are equal. That's the source of our equality. That's why it is so funny, okay? I just say funny or dumb or foolish for people who don't believe in God to talk about equality. How are you going to do it? There's no way you are going to do it. You can legislate, but you're not going to follow the law. Because in you, there is no moral basis to follow the law of equality. The law of equality is embedded in us by the Creator. If one doesn't recognize the Creator, if one doesn't recognize that we are made, each one of us is made in the image and likeness of God, image of God, it's impossible to uphold equality among ourselves. One can talk about equality, but just wanting to take advantage of people. So equality among humans basically goes hand in hand with believing in God, okay, who made us equal, meaning in His image, after His likeness. Okay. So, willed by God on the one hand, in perfect equality as human persons, on the other, in their respective beings as man and woman. Being man or being woman is a reality. It's not an idea. It is a reality. A reality which is good. To be female is good. To be male is good. Why? Because when God created them, He says they are good. So what God has declared good, we can't declare evil. So, being man, being woman is a reality which is good and willed by God. So anyone who doesn't want to be woman when they are woman or man when they are man, it just shows that there is something wrong. Okay? And it shouldn't be condoned or encouraged. Okay? This idea of confusion of sexes. Okay? There is something wrong. A person is confused about who they are. And we can't say, oh, your confusion is clarity. It can't be. Okay? Because it is good to be a man, it is good to be a woman. And of course, some people say, because we are in a world of pride today, generation of pride, okay? I must decide. I must decide, I must have a say in this, I. Okay, when did you decide to be a woman?
Day one.
Yeah, but you didn't decide, even at day one you didn't decide. Okay, so as Pope Benedict puts it, okay, in our quest to make decisions and whatever, some of the most beautiful things, in fact, most of the most beautiful things about life are predetermined. Life is predetermined for us. And we love it. Life is good. Okay? The most beautiful things about us are predetermined. We don't have a say in it. Okay, you hear some Christian parents, Catholic parents, okay? I don't force my religion on my children. I wait for them to grow up and make a decision. I asked one of those people, because it's like, to show them how you reason. This woman had kids, four kids. And she was an American. And she was telling me, I don't force my religion on my children, okay? You know, I let them be whatever they decided to be, whatever religion they decide. I said, do you love your faith? Oh yeah, I love my faith, you know. I cherish my faith, but I don't force it on my children. They have to decide. I said, are you American? She said, yeah, I am. Are they American? I said, yeah. I asked, when did they become Americans? So she thought that I was stupid. I was being dumb by asking these questions. Yeah? Then when she was trying to say that maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, I said to her, why do you force your Americanism on your children? How did you know at day one that they wanted to be Americans? Why don't you leave them alone until they turn 10 or 18 to decide whether they want to be Brazilians or Chinese or British or whoever? Right? Why do you force your nationality on your children? Because you love America and you can't think of your child being, they're born here, baby. They're born here.
Same thing.
But what more so about God?
It's more
That you have discovered faith, you say, you believe that this is about eternity, living forever. None of us will be American forever. Okay, it's going to end with death. Okay, dead Americans have no rights anymore.
I'm sorry, some of them still vote.
Some of them still vote, okay. Or anybody who is dead, you know, wherever we wanted to be, British or whatever, once we die, that ends there. Okay? But if we cherish our faith, we know that we're going to be citizens of heaven forever. But I want my children to decide, but I can force on them something temporal that is going to end, but I can't force on them something eternal. What hypocrisy and lack of, you know, proper logical understanding, reasoning. Yes.
My daughter's hearing impaired, and I had to make a choice when she was very young. But there were no Catholic churches that signed that would give her God. So I chose to put her in a facility where she could find God, and then she could decide something later, because there was no church in our community.
So you did the best for her in terms of the faith.
Right.
Yes, under those circumstances. Yes. As you know that even some parents, again, you may have, it's a sad reality. You made a decision because, you know, there was nothing available. Okay? But in some situations, some parents have taken their children to Protestant schools because at least there they are going to get something more about Christ than some Catholic schools.
I got one more question. I'm gonna leave you alone. I taught at the hospital in Cleveland, and we had a particular child with both genitalia. So the parents had to make a decision as to